Flight 847 seemed routine until military jets surrounded them, demanding they land immediately. The passengers thought their captain was just another airline pilot. But when the shooting started, Jessica's hands moved like she'd done this before. What was she hiding? And why did those F-22 pilots seem terrified of her? Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share for more stories. Captain Jessica Jess Carter adjusted her headset as United Flight 847 climbed smoothly through 25,000 feet. The massive Boeing 777 was packed with 179 passengers heading from Los Angeles to New York on this bright Tuesday morning. To everyone who saw her walking through LAX earlier, she was just another airline pilot, professional, competent, but nothing particularly special. Her crisp white uniform was standard airline issue, with 4 gold captain stripes on her sleeves. Her pilot's cap sat perfectly on her shoulder-length brown hair, which was pulled back in a regulation bun. She spoke in the calm, measured tones that nervous passengers found reassuring. Her pre-flight announcements were textbook perfect, delivered with just the right amount of warmth and authority. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking from the flight deck. We've reached our cruising altitude of 37,000 feet and I've turned off the seatbelt sign. Flight time to New York will be approximately 4 hours and 20 minutes. Weather radar shows clear skies all the way across the country, so we should have a very smooth flight today. Cabin crew, you're free to begin beverage service. First Officer Mike Rodriguez glanced over at her with the respect that comes from flying with someone truly skilled. Jess was known throughout United Airlines as one of their absolute best pilots. Always calm under pressure, always perfectly prepared, never rattled by anything, weather, mechanical problems, or difficult passengers. In his 2 years flying as her co-pilot, Mike had never once seen her lose her composure or make a mistake. Beautiful takeoff back there, Captain, Mike said, adjusting his own headset. Smooth as silk, even with that crosswind. Thanks, Mike. Just another day at the office, Jess replied with a slight smile. The morning had started normally at LAX. Pre-flight checks, weather briefings, route planning, all the routine tasks that made commercial aviation so safe and predictable. Jess had walked around the aircraft doing her exterior inspection, checking tires, looking for any obvious problems. The Boeing 777 was in perfect condition, fueled and ready for the cross-country flight. She had greeted the passengers as they boarded with her usual professional friendliness. A young family traveling to visit grandparents. Business travelers heading to important meetings. College students going home for spring break. All trusting her to get them safely across the continent. The takeoff from LAX had been routine but perfect. Jess had lined up on runway 25 left, pushed the throttles forward, and felt the massive aircraft accelerate smoothly down the runway. At exactly the right moment, she had pulled back on the controls and the 777 had lifted gracefully into the clear California sky. United 847, contact departure, good day, the LAX tower controller had said. Departure on 124.9, good day, Mike had responded, switching radio frequencies as they climbed. Now, 45 minutes into the flight, they were settling into the routine of a long cross-country trip. The autopilot was engaged, the aircraft was flying itself along the programmed route, and Jess was monitoring the systems while making small talk with Mike. But what Mike didn't know, what nobody at United Airlines knew, was that this wasn't just another routine day for Captain Jessica Carter. Before she flew commercial airliners carrying families and business travelers, she had been something else entirely. Something that would shock everyone who knew her quiet, professional airline pilot persona. For 8 intense years, she had been one of the United States Navy's most elite and dangerous fighter pilots. Her call sign had been Ace, a nickname earned the hard way after she became the first female pilot in naval aviation history to achieve 5 confirmed air-to-air kills flying the F/A-18 Super Hornet. She had flown combat missions over hostile territory that most pilots only read about in classified reports. She had been hand-selected for the most sensitive operations, the most dangerous assignments, the missions that required not just exceptional flying skills but nerves of absolute steel. During her naval career, she had shot down enemy aircraft over the Middle East, protected carrier battle groups from incoming threats, and conducted precision strikes against high-value targets. She had earned the Navy Cross, the Distinguished Flying Cross, and 3 Air Medals for valor in combat. Her tactics and techniques were studied at the Navy's elite fighter weapons school Top Gun, where she had also served as an instructor, teaching the next generation of naval aviators how to survive and win in aerial combat. But that was another life entirely. A life she had deliberately left behind 5 years ago when she decided she wanted something fundamentally different. She was tired of war, tired of the constant danger, tired of making life-or-death decisions in split-second timing. The adrenaline rush of combat flying had eventually been replaced by a deep exhaustion with violence and conflict. Commercial aviation had seemed like the perfect solution. She could still fly, still use her skills, still challenge herself professionally. But instead of carrying weapons and hunting enemies, she would carry passengers and help people reach their destinations safely. No missiles, no dogfights, no enemies trying to shoot her down. Just peaceful flights carrying families on vacation, business people to important meetings, students going home to visit their parents. She had deliberately chosen to keep her military background as quiet as possible. When United Airlines hired her, they knew she was former Navy. That was actually a significant advantage in the hiring process. Military pilots were considered among the best trained in the world. But she never talked about what she had really done during her service. She let people assume she had been a transport pilot or maybe flown cargo planes. The idea that their calm, soft-spoken Captain Carter had once been one of the deadliest fighter pilots in the world would have seemed impossible. The other pilots at United respected her exceptional flying skills, but they attributed them to natural talent and excellent civilian training. They had no idea she had once engaged enemy fighters in aerial combat, that she had looked through her gun sight at enemy pilots and pulled the trigger, that she had been in situations where a single mistake meant death. Her personnel file listed her as former military pilot, with an honorable discharge. It mentioned her excellent safety record and outstanding performance evaluations. What it didn't mention was that she had been featured on the cover of Aviation Week magazine as the Navy's deadliest female pilot. It didn't mention the classified missions, the enemy aircraft destroyed, the battles fought at 30,000 feet and 500 miles per hour. As Flight 847 cruised peacefully across the American heartland, Jess looked out at the endless blue sky and felt a deep sense of contentment. This was exactly what she wanted now. Routine, predictable, safe. No drama, no emergencies, no life-threatening situations that required split-second tactical decisions. Just professional airline flying, getting passengers safely from point A to point B. The flight attendants were moving through the cabin serving drinks and snacks. Passengers were reading, sleeping, watching movies on their devices. Children were coloring in activity books. Business travelers were working on laptops. It was exactly the kind of peaceful, normal flight that Jess loved. She had no way of knowing that in less than 90 minutes, everything would change dramatically. The peaceful routine flight she cherished would become the most dangerous and intense situation she had faced since leaving the Navy. Her carefully hidden past would be exposed to the entire world. And the skills she thought she had left behind forever would be the only thing standing between 179 innocent people and disaster. They were cruising peacefully somewhere over the rugged mountains of Colorado when the first subtle hint of trouble appeared on their radar screens. Air traffic control in Denver called with what seemed like a routine request, but something in the controller's voice made Jess pay closer attention. United 847, Denver Center. We need you to alter your course immediately. Turn left to heading 090 and expedite the turn, please. Mike reached for the radio microphone with practiced efficiency. Denver Center, United 847. Copy, left turn to heading 090. Request reason for the course deviation. There was a brief pause before the controller responded, and when he did, his voice sounded slightly tense. United 847, we have military aircraft conducting some unscheduled training exercises in your current flight path. For safety reasons, we need you to avoid that airspace temporarily. Jess frowned as she began the turn to the new heading. Something about this exchange felt wrong to her experienced pilot instincts. Military training exercises in busy commercial airspace were extremely rare and usually well coordinated in advance. Air traffic controllers typically had detailed information about such operations. The vague explanation and the urgency in the controller's voice triggered alarm bells in her mind. Mike, ask them for more specific details about these exercises, she said quietly, not wanting to alarm him but wanting more information. Denver Center, United 847. Can you provide additional information about the nature of these military exercises? We're showing completely clear skies on our weather radar system. Another pause, longer this time. United 847, just comply with the heading change immediately, please. Turn left to 090 right now. The controlled panic barely concealed in the controller's voice sent a chill down Jess's spine. She felt that familiar tingle at the back of her neck, the same instinctive warning system that had kept her alive during 8 years of combat flying. Something was definitely not right about this situation. She turned the massive aircraft to the new heading as requested, but kept scanning the sky around them with the systematic thoroughness that had been drilled into her during fighter pilot training. Nothing visible on the horizon yet, but her military experience had taught her that in aerial warfare, by the time you could see the threat with your naked eye, it was often too late to react effectively. "Captain," Mike said, his voice carrying a note of confusion as he studied his radar display, "look at this. I'm picking up multiple contacts on the scope. Fast movers. Really, really fast." Jess leaned over to examine Mike's radar screen, and what she saw there made her blood run cold. Several radar contacts were approaching their position at extremely high speed, much faster than any commercial aircraft could possibly fly. The speed, altitude, and flight pattern indicated only one thing: military fighter jets. And they were coming straight toward Flight 847. "Those are fighters," she said, more to herself than to Mike, her voice automatically dropping to the calm, analytical tone she had used in combat situations. "How can you tell from just the radar?" Mike asked, looking at her with surprise. Jess caught herself before she revealed too much. She had to be extremely careful about what knowledge she displayed. The speed and the way they're moving in formation must be part of that training exercise the controller mentioned. But even as she said the words, she knew they weren't true. The aircraft were approaching in a tactical formation that had nothing to do with any training exercise she had ever seen or participated in. The pattern looked aggressive, purposeful, designed for intercept and engagement rather than practice maneuvers. Then the radio crackled with a transmission that made every muscle in her body tense with recognition and alarm. "Commercial aircraft at heading 090, altitude 37,000, this is Colonel Martinez, United States Air Force. You are ordered to change course immediately to heading 180 and descend to 25,000 feet. Comply immediately or you will be considered a hostile contact." Mike's eyes went wide with shock and confusion. "What the hell is going on, Captain? Why are they treating us like enemies?" Before Jess could formulate an answer that wouldn't reveal her military background, two F-22 Raptor stealth fighters suddenly materialized out of the clear blue sky, appearing alongside their aircraft as if they had been invisible just moments before. The advanced fighters were flying in perfect formation just off their wingtips, close enough that Jess could clearly see the pilots in their cockpits. The passengers on the left side of the aircraft began pointing excitedly and taking pictures with their phones. Word spread rapidly through the cabin like wildfire. People were initially thrilled, thinking they were witnessing some kind of spectacular air show or military demonstration. But Jess knew better. She recognized the aggressive positioning, the tactical formation, the threatening radio communications. The F-22s weren't there for show or demonstration. They were there for business, and that business involved intercepting Flight 847 for reasons she couldn't yet understand. She keyed the radio microphone with steady hands, her voice remaining professionally calm despite the adrenaline beginning to course through her system. "Air Force aircraft, this is United Airlines Flight 847. We are a scheduled commercial airliner with 179 souls on board. Please state the nature of your concern and your authority for this intercept." "United 847, you are carrying a high-value target aboard your aircraft. You will immediately comply with our instructions and follow our escort to a designated secure landing facility where the target will be transferred to our custody. Any deviation from our instructions will be considered an act of aggression against the United States." Mike looked at Jess with a mixture of confusion and growing fear. "Captain, what are they talking about? What high-value target? We're just carrying regular passengers, families, business travelers, nobody special." Jess's mind raced through the possibilities. A high-value target on a commercial flight? Someone important enough to scramble two of the Air Force's most advanced and expensive fighter aircraft? It could be a terrorist, a defector with valuable intelligence, a witness in a major criminal case, or even someone who had stolen classified information. But then a much more disturbing thought occurred to her. During her years as a fighter pilot, she had been extensively briefed on scenarios where enemy forces might attempt to use captured or stolen American military equipment for hostile operations. The procedures being used here, the aggressive posture, the threatening language, none of it matched the professional protocols she remembered from her own military service. She needed to verify their identity and authority, but she also needed to protect her passengers at all costs. All 179 innocent people who had boarded this flight expecting nothing more exciting than airline food and in-flight movies now found themselves in the middle of what appeared to be a military operation. "Air Force aircraft," she responded carefully, "please provide your unit designation and authority for this intercept." We need proper military authorization before we can deviate from our assigned flight plan and route. The response came back immediately, and the tone was noticeably more hostile and threatening. United 847, you have exactly 30 seconds to comply with our instructions or we will take immediate action to force compliance. This is your final warning. Jess studied the F-22s flying alongside them more carefully. Something about their markings seemed slightly off, though she couldn't quite put her finger on what was bothering her. The aircraft looked genuine. These were definitely real F-22 Raptors, not some kind of fake or mock-up. But there was something about the whole situation that triggered every alarm bell in her combat-trained mind. The aggressive timeline, the threatening language, the refusal to provide proper identification. None of it matched the professional standards she remembered from her military career. Real Air Force intercepts involved extensive coordination, proper identification protocols, and careful adherence to rules of engagement designed to avoid exactly this kind of confrontation with civilian aircraft. As she looked more closely at the lead F-22, something clicked in her mind. The markings were almost right but not quite. The serial numbers were in the wrong font. The squadron markings were slightly incorrect. These aircraft had been modified or disguised to look like U.S. Air Force fighters, but they weren't the genuine article. "Mike," she said quietly, "I need you to listen very carefully and do exactly what I tell you. Don't react, don't change your expression, just listen." Her voice carried such calm authority that Mike immediately focused on her completely, despite his growing panic about their situation. "Those aren't really our guys," she continued in the same level tone. "Something is seriously wrong with this whole situation. Real Air Force intercepts don't happen like this. The procedures are all wrong, the protocols don't match, and I'm seeing discrepancies in their aircraft markings." "What do you mean?" Mike whispered, his face going pale. "How can you possibly know that?" Jess realized she had already revealed more about her background than she had intended, but there was no time for careful explanations. The 30-second deadline was approaching rapidly. "Trust me on this," she said firmly. "I know more about military procedures than I can explain right now. We need to assume these are hostile forces using stolen or captured aircraft until we can prove otherwise." "Mike," Jess said quietly, "I need you to listen carefully and do exactly what I tell you. Don't react, don't change your expression. Just listen." Her voice was so calm and controlled that Mike immediately focused on her completely. "Those aren't really our guys," she continued. "Something's wrong with this whole situation. Real Air Force intercepts don't happen like this. The procedures are all wrong." "What do you mean?" Mike whispered. "The radio calls, the formation, the threats, none of it matches real military protocols. I think we're dealing with hostiles using stolen or captured aircraft." Mike's face went pale. "How can you possibly know that?" Jess realized she had said too much. But there was no time to explain. The F-22s were still flying alongside them, and the deadline was approaching. "Trust me on this," she said. "I know things about military procedures that I can't explain right now. We need to assume these are bad guys until proven otherwise." She reached for the radio, but this time she switched to a different frequency, the emergency military channel she remembered from her fighter pilot days. Any U.S. military aircraft, this is United Airlines Flight 847 declaring emergency. We are being intercepted by unknown aircraft claiming to be Air Force. Request immediate assistance." Within seconds, a new voice responded. "United 847, this is General Harrison, NORAD Command. Confirm you are being intercepted by unknown aircraft." "Affirmative, General. 2 F-22 Raptors have ordered us to change course and land at an unknown location. They claim we're carrying a high-value target. United 847, be advised those are not U.S. military aircraft. Repeat, those are hostile forces. Do not comply with their demands. We are scrambling genuine F-22s to assist you immediately." Mike stared at Jess in amazement. "How did you know to use that frequency? How do you know about military protocols?" Before Jess could answer, the hostile aircraft responded to her radio call with anger. "United 847, you will cease all radio transmissions and comply immediately, or we will open fire." To emphasize their threat, both F-22s suddenly pulled ahead of the airliner and turned back toward them in an attack position. The passengers could see what was happening now. The excitement about seeing military aircraft had turned to fear as people realized something was seriously wrong. Jess's training took over completely. Without conscious thought, she began evasive maneuvers that no commercial pilot should have known how to perform. She rolled the big airliner slightly left, then right, then pushed the nose down in a shallow dive. The moves were subtle enough not to panic the passengers too much, but dramatic enough to spoil the attackers' targeting solutions. "Captain?" Mike shouted. "What are you doing? This is a commercial airliner, not a fighter jet." "Hold on," Jess said grimly. "It's about to get much worse." The hostile F-22s fired warning shots, cannon rounds that streaked past the airliner's wings. The message was clear: comply or be shot down. But Jess had other plans. She remembered everything from her fighter pilot days. The tactics, the maneuvers, the way to use an aircraft's capabilities to maximum advantage. Even a big, slow airliner had options if you knew how to use them. She pushed the Boeing 777 into a steeper dive, picking up speed. The hostile fighters had to adjust their own flight paths to stay with her. United 847, this is Colonel Stevens leading Raptor flight. We are 2 minutes out. Can you maintain evasive action? Jess smiled grimly. Real Air Force pilots using real call signs and proper procedures. Raptor flight, United 847. We can hold them off. But these passengers don't deserve to be in the middle of this. Understood, United 847. We'll get you out of this. Mike was staring at Jess like he had never seen her before. Captain, how do you know how to do this? How do you know fighter pilot tactics? Jess realized there was no point in hiding it anymore. In 2 minutes, the real Air Force would arrive, and her secret would be exposed anyway. Because, she said, putting the airliner through another evasive maneuver, I used to be one of them. The real F-22 Raptors appeared like angels from heaven. 4 genuine U.S. Air Force fighters, flying in perfect formation, approaching at incredible speed. Hostile aircraft, this is Colonel Stevens, United States Air Force. You are ordered to break off immediately and land at the nearest airfield. Any further aggressive action against the civilian aircraft will be met with deadly force. The hostile pilots must have realized their situation had changed dramatically. They were no longer dealing with a helpless commercial airliner. They were now facing 4 of the most advanced fighter aircraft in the world, flown by some of the best pilots on Earth. But instead of surrendering, they chose to fight. The first hostile F-22 broke left and climbed, trying to get behind one of the American fighters. The second one went right, attempting to flank them from the other side. What followed was an aerial ballet of death performed at 40,000 feet and 500 miles per hour. Jess found herself in the middle of it all, flying her massive airliner through a sky filled with supersonic fighters engaging in deadly combat. She had to keep her aircraft and passengers safe while the real Air Force dealt with the threat. United 847, this is Raptor lead. Can you maintain your current heading and altitude? Negative, Raptor lead. I need to maneuver to stay clear of the engagement. I'll do my best to stay out of your way. Roger that. And United 847? Nice flying. Very nice flying. Colonel Stevens had noticed something that was becoming obvious to everyone watching. The pilot of that commercial airliner wasn't flying like any airline captain he had ever seen. The evasive maneuvers, the tactical awareness, the calm professional radio calls under fire, this was someone with serious military training. The air battle raged around them for what felt like hours but was actually only about 5 minutes. The American pilots were clearly superior. Within minutes, one hostile F-22 had been shot down. The other was damaged and trying to escape. Raptor lead, this is Raptor 3. Hostile 2 is running for the Mexican border. Should I pursue? Negative, Raptor 3. Let him go. Our priority is protecting that airliner. The American F-22s formed up around Flight 847, providing escort as Jess turned back toward their original course. United 847, this is Colonel Stevens. Outstanding flying, Captain. Where did you learn tactics like that? Jess hesitated. Her secret was about to come out anyway. Colonel, this is Captain Jessica Carter. I used to fly F divided by a -18S for the Navy. Call sign Ace. There was a long pause on the radio. Then, did you say your call sign was Ace? Ace? Jessica S. Carter? Affirmative. Holy shit, came a different voice over the radio. Ace Carter is flying that airliner. Guys, we just got rescued by a legend. Mike was staring at Jess with his mouth open. Ace? You're Ace Carter? The fighter pilot they made documentaries about? Jess nodded, focused on flying the plane. Former fighter pilot. I've been flying commercial for 5 years. But, you're famous. You're like the most successful female fighter pilot in history. Was. Past tense. Now I'm just an airline captain trying to get 179 people safely to New York. As Flight 847 continued toward New York with its F-22 escort, word of what had happened spread quickly. The passengers had seen enough to know something extraordinary had occurred. Someone had tried to attack their plane, and their captain had somehow outmaneuvered military fighters. The flight attendants were getting questions they couldn't answer. The passengers wanted to know who their captain really was and how she knew how to fly like that. Meanwhile, on the ground, the story was spreading even faster. Air traffic controllers had heard the radio transmissions. Military commanders were briefing their superiors. News organizations were picking up the story. By the time they landed at JFK Airport in New York, there were news trucks waiting. United 847, this is JFK Tower. You're cleared to land runway 22 left. And Captain, the whole world is waiting to hear your story. Jess brought the big airliner down in a perfect landing. As they taxied to the gate, she could see the crowd gathering. Airport security, FBI agents, military officers, and dozens of reporters. Captain, Mike said, your secret's out. Everyone's going to know now. Jess nodded. I know. It was bound to happen eventually. As the passengers deplaned, many of them stopped to thank her personally. They had figured out that their captain was someone special, even if they didn't know exactly who. One elderly gentleman shook her hand and said, "Young lady, I don't know who you are, but you saved our lives today. Thank you." A mother with 2 small children hugged her. My babies are safe because of you. I'll never forget this. By the time Jess left the cockpit, word had spread throughout the terminal. Passengers from other flights, airport workers, and airline employees had gathered to see the pilot who had outflown enemy fighters in a commercial airliner. As she walked through the terminal, people began to applaud. Then someone shouted, "That's Ace Carter, the Navy fighter pilot." The applause grew louder. Soon the entire terminal was cheering. Jess stopped walking. For 5 years she had hidden who she was. She had been content to be just another airline pilot, anonymous and safe. But that was over now. A reporter pushed through the crowd with a microphone. "Captain Carter, how does it feel to be a hero again?" Jess looked at the crowd, at the cameras, at all the faces looking at her with admiration and respect. "I was never trying to be a hero," she said. 5 years ago, I left the military because I wanted a quiet life. I wanted to fly passengers safely from place to place without drama or danger. But today you had to use your fighter pilot skills to save 179 people. Today I did what any pilot would do, I protected my passengers. The fact that I had military training just meant I had more options available. Will you go back to military flying now? Jess thought about the question. I don't know. I love flying for the airlines. I love helping people travel safely. But today reminded me that sometimes the world needs people with specialized skills to step up. What do you want people to know about what happened today? Jess looked directly into the camera. I want people to know that there are heroes everywhere. They're flying your planes, teaching your children, working in your hospitals, serving in your military. Most of the time you'll never know who they really are or what they're capable of. But when the time comes, they'll be there. The story of United Flight 847 became international news within hours. The dramatic rescue of a commercial airliner by a former fighter pilot captured the world's imagination. Video footage shot by passengers during the incident went viral. People watched in amazement as their captain performed evasive maneuvers that seemed impossible for such a large aircraft. The Pentagon held a press conference to explain what had happened. The hostile aircraft had been operated by a terrorist organization that had somehow acquired stolen F-22 technology. Their plan had been to hijack the commercial flight and use it for an attack on a major city. Captain Carter's actions prevented a catastrophic terrorist attack, General Harrison announced. Her skills and courage saved not only the 179 people on board her aircraft, but potentially thousands of people on the ground. The airline industry was amazed to discover that one of their most respected captains was actually a military legend. Stories emerged about her 8-year Navy career, her 5 confirmed kills, her decorations for valor, and her reputation as one of the finest fighter pilots of her generation. But Jess herself remained focused on the future, not the past. A week after the incident, she was back in the cockpit, flying a routine flight from New York to Los Angeles. Her first officer was a young woman named Lisa, who was clearly nervous about flying with someone so famous. "Captain Carter," Lisa said, "I have to ask, are you going back to the military? Everyone says you're being recruited for some top-secret program." Jess smiled. "Lisa, can I tell you something? 8 years ago, I was one of the best fighter pilots in the world. I was good at what I did and I was proud of it. But you know what I've learned in 5 years of commercial flying? What? There's more than one way to serve. When I was in the Navy, I protected my country. Now I protect my passengers. Both jobs matter. Both jobs require skill, dedication, and courage. So you're staying with the airline? For now. But I've also been asked to help train commercial pilots in emergency procedures. Apparently, there's value in teaching airline crews some of the tactics I learned in the military. As their flight climbed smoothly toward cruising altitude, Lisa asked, "Do you miss it? The excitement, the danger, being Ace Carter instead of just Captain Carter?" Jess looked out at the peaceful sky ahead. "You know what I learned last week? I'm not just Captain Carter. I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. Whether I'm flying fighters or airliners, whether I'm Ace or Jessica, I'm still the same person. I still have the same skills, the same commitment to protecting people. The passengers on our flights have no idea who you really are. And that's fine with me. They don't need to know I used to shoot down enemy aircraft. They just need to know I'll get them safely to their destination." As Flight 847 had proven, sometimes that was enough. Sometimes a commercial pilot was exactly what the world needed. 6 months later, Captain Jessica Carter was named Pilot of the Year by the International Airline Pilots Association. The award recognized not just her actions during the hijacking attempt, but her 5 years of safe, professional commercial flying. In her acceptance speech, she said something that became famous throughout the aviation community. "People ask me if I'm prouder of my military service or my airline career. That's the wrong question. I'm proud of being a pilot. Whether I'm flying fighters or airliners, whether I'm in combat or carrying passengers, the job is the same: use your skills to protect people and complete the mission safely. The terrorists who attacked us thought they were dealing with just a commercial pilot. They were wrong. I am a commercial pilot. But I'm also a naval aviator, a former fighter pilot, and most importantly, someone who will do whatever it takes to protect innocent people. To my fellow airline pilots, remember this: you are more than you think you are. Your training, your skills, your dedication, they matter more than you know. Whether the world knows your story or not, you are making a difference every single day." The crowd of pilots rose to their feet in thunderous applause. Later that evening, as Jess sat in the hotel bar with some of her fellow pilots, someone asked her if she had any regrets about her secret being exposed. "None at all," she said. "For 5 years I tried to be someone I wasn't. I thought I had to choose between being Ace Carter, the fighter pilot, and Jessica Carter, the airline captain. But last week taught me something important." "What's that?" "I don't have to choose. I'm both. I always was both. The skills that made me a good fighter pilot make me a better airline captain. The experience of protecting my country helps me protect my passengers." "So what's next for the famous Ace Carter?" Jess smiled. "Tomorrow I'm flying a 737 full of families to Disney World. After that, I have a trip to London. Next month, I start teaching emergency procedures to other commercial pilots." Sounds pretty normal for someone who just became a global hero. "Good," Jess said. "Normal is exactly what I want. I've had enough excitement for one lifetime. From now on, I just want to fly people safely from point A to point B. It's what I love and it's what I'm good at. Even if the whole world knows who you really are now. Especially because they know. Now I don't have to hide anything. I can be completely myself." Jessica Carter, airline captain, former naval aviator, protector of innocent people, and someone who believes that every flight, no matter how routine, matters. As she looked around the table at her fellow pilots, Jess realized something. She had found her place in the world. Not as Ace Carter, the fighter pilot, not as just another airline captain, but as exactly who she was: someone with extraordinary skills dedicated to the ordinary but essential job of getting people safely where they needed to go.